head when I was wanting to upgrade from a $30 webcam and a $50 microphone.
Yeah.
For many, this is going to be a breaking point. The moment where games start to feel more like an exclusive club for the people that can afford it and less like a pastime accessible to anyone who loves the medium.
That's also another really big problem he's bringing up, is that video games are mainly for young guys, and young guys care about video games the most because video games are the first place that young men have an opportunity to prove themselves on an even playing field with other people that are not just their peers. So, like, for example, when you play a video game in Fortnite, like, let's say you're playing Marvel Rivals and you're 14, you're not going to get gapped by some 30-year-old with a job. Now, the reality is that you actually have an advantage over him, not just genetically because you're younger, you have, like, naturally faster reflexes, but also because, like, you don't even know what a mortgage is. You have an income tax. What the fuck is an... So a 401k, what is that? You're 14 years old. All you know about is, you know, playing this character and being good at this, right? You don't even know, like, a 1040. Like, what's a 1040? Is that like a, you know, is that like a Fortnite move or something? And so, yeah, you don't even know shit. So you can, like, 100% zero in on a video game. And so, yeah, is that the new graphics card or something? And so that's really a big difference too, is that young guys and people without a lot of resources look to video games as an outlet for them to experience life on an even playing field. And I think that that's a really big component that's not discussed enough. And I think that that desire is partially naive, but it exists.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Barrier that not only reflects inflation, but also sets the tone for how the industry views its audience. One where only a select few can afford or truly engage with what the industry has to offer. I just hate how disingenuous all of this is. Ball says the prices for all things are up, and the idea that games need to stay the same price isn't fair, conveniently ignoring the fact that while
the problem is that he's right, but it doesn't matter. That's the issue. When we are old, we are going to look back and say, you remember back in the day when video games were only $100? We're going to do that one day. But not today.
Upfront price of games has remained relatively stable. The way that games are monetized has changed drastically. In-game purchases, microtransactions, season passes, battle passes, and expensive collector's editions have all become the norm. Game companies have found new, more aggressive ways to squeeze every dollar from the player far beyond the original price tag. A $60 to $70 game is no longer just that. It's an entry point to truly experience whatever the game has to offer.
It's like whenever you pay for a girl's OnlyFans and then you find out that everything in the OnlyFans is actually pay-per-view. So you have to pay a subscription to be part of the OnlyFans, and then you have to pay for the content on top of that. How would you know? Because I dated girls that did that. Yeah, they paid for my dinner plenty of times yesterday.
Players are often pressured into spending far more in additional content. Customers aren't just paying more, they're paying far beyond what they originally bargained for, and that's what should be addressed, not just the price tag on the box. And what's even more funny about all of this is the fact that the writer of this article actually ended up using the Baldur's Gate 3 developers' words out of context. And by the way, if you guys have paid attention at all to journalism,
I love how they like to compare like Baldur's Gate 3 to like the new Assassin's Creed or like Star Wars Outlaws. Like, oh yeah, this is like, these are both AAA games. Like, yeah, these are both AAA games. Yeah, like a firework, like a black cat and a grenade are both explosives. They both explode. Yeah, for sure.
Last couple of years, they've been using Baldur's Gate 3 developers out of context constantly because they think it adds some type of emotional weight to whatever their words are. Like, oh, look, here's this great developer that made a game that everybody loves saying that they agree with us, when 9 times out of 10, their words are completely out of context. They used it here saying that everybody's just waiting for GTA to increase the price, acting like the Baldur's Gate 3 developers want GTA to increase the price. When
but I don't think we'll get there with DLC promises. Yeah, so that's a really
the original tweet that they had made was talking about how much they hated artificial price structures and gouging that we see in today's gaming industry. The original tweet actually said, "I don't love the artificiality of pricing structures post-retail." use the inflated base price to upsell a subscription, and use vague content promises to inflate Ultimate Editions to make the base price look better. It all seems a bit dangerous and disconnected from the community.
That's a fact.
I think the game should be priced according to its quality, breadth, and depth. I'm not against higher prices, but
how it used to fucking be, and they stopped doing this in the GameCube era. Before that, that's how it used to be. And this guy's, you can tell, look at his hairline. He remembers that.
this arbitrary uniformity just doesn't make sense to me. It feels so unserious. I'm gonna go off for a second. Don't you guys love how every single time they like to twist things to be able to suit whatever their narrative is, and everything is always coming from the perspective of the industry and never from the perspective of the player, of the customer, the people that are actually spending money on these things to begin with? Because we are never a priority. We are never at the forefront of discussion. We are never at the forefront of their mind when they're making these decisions. And then they sit back and they wonder.
It's actually crazy how you can have people that are visionary product designers and visionary, like innovators in the industry. I think two great examples are Michael Dell and Steve Jobs for computers recently. And both of them looked explicitly at the consumer experience and worked backwards from that. And then you have these clowns that somehow, like, you literally have it written out for you. They wrote a book on how to do it. It's not like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just start rolling.
Get ready.
And they're not. They can't use the fucking wheel. So Jobs is a great salesman. Yeah, nobody listens to the fucking customer. It's nuts.
Try to take a bite out of
Why games are failing and studios are closing. I don't know. How could that possibly happen? The prices for everything is going up. You're absolutely right. Now that I think about it, you know what hasn't gone up with inflation? The general quality and day one performance of video games. Even some of the best games that we've seen released over the last few years can't even hit a standardized level of quality. We are spending $60 to $70 on brand new day one video games that we have to sit there and hold the bag because the game's not even finished, because it's always the minimum viable product that's being
Yeah, the MVP. This ain't sports, bro. Most valuable player? Minimum viable product. That means the biggest piece of shit that we can get you to pay for. And Avowed, they just come out and they say, like, yeah, we know this is going to be fucked on release. And it's like, yeah, I get it, right? But you can't go and say that and then be surprised if people don't want to give you $90 for a deluxe edition.
released to us, and we have to wait for them to finish the game for us to be able to play it. Let me take a wild guess and say they're probably going to try to blame the price of things on that as well.
For sure. It's Trump.
They want to talk about how expensive it is to make games today. You know, my question is,
that's
why
what
are we
developers are going to try and do? They're going to try and blame. They're going to say Trump tariffs are making our video games too expensive, and so now we have to charge you more. So you have to hate Trump.
The ones that need to keep up with you and your spending. We didn't sign up for that. When I look around the industry, I see some of the most successful games over the last few years: Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2. These games are made with a quarter of the budget of some of these big
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Look at that. They said they made that game for like $41 million. Huh. How'd that happen?
Actually, AAA games that nobody ended up buying in the first place. You guys are making tens of billions of dollars. The vast majority of the money that is made in this industry is coming from microtransactions. This is not my problem. The sheer cowardice.
You've gotta stop asking the consumer to take on the accountability from the business. Stop asking consumers to do that. That's not how you run a business. You run a business by creating a product, creating value that people are willing to give you money for. A lot of things beyond that, almost everything beyond that, is noise.
Of these companies to sit by and wait for somebody else to increase prices because they know it's a game, or they think it's a game that everybody's going to buy, and it's going to be the best way to just sneak that price change in. And that is so telling, because you are pathetic and you realize that your games wouldn't sell.
That's right.
Asmon, thanks for unpausing. Eddie continues with $70.
chicken soup.
He was right. I mean, shit, he was right. I mean, fuck. I don't know what to say. Yeah.
The current market rate for new AAA releases, and in fact, it was Take-Two
Okay.
that was among the first to raise prices from $60 to $70 back in 2020. Many are naturally wondering if Take-Two might raise prices again for GTA 6's launch. But it remains to be seen if that'll happen. Beyond updating the sticker price for games, video publishers have found other ways to be able to make more money out of players, including expensive editions, microtransactions, and battle passes, just to name a few. GTA 5, for example, has sold 205 million copies and brings in a lot of money in microtransactions in GTA Online.
Shark cards.
Early predictions have said that GTA 6 could sell 40 million copies and earn more than $3 billion in revenue during its first year alone.
Wow.
Ball said that GTA 6's launch this year will have mixed impact on total player hours and revenue across the gaming industry because it'll only be available on console. The PC release is expected after the console launch.
Oh, really? I
However,
didn't even
Ball
know that.
said that GTA 6 will severely cannibalize total hours and spending that would go to other video games when it launches. For its part,
Of course, that's what happens. It's the same reason why this game killed Overwatch. Like, you see this game going like this, you see Overwatch going, it's dying.
Ubisoft said GTA 6 is a good thing for the video game industry overall because a huge game like that may help more people turn to gaming.
It is.
Some of the other areas that Ball listed off as having potential for growth in 2025 included further expansions into non-core markets, user-generated content, social game services, the Nintendo Switch 2, other new handhelds and devices, AA, AAA, mobile gaming, app store regulation, new game releases, generative AI, and advertising. Make this make sense. I do not understand how GTA 6, projecting 40 million copies sold and $3 billion in revenue in its first year, is somehow a footnote in a discussion as to why other games should increase their prices to $100. They are failing to realize why GTA 5 did so well, why GTA 6 is likely to do even better, or why it could even sell for $100 in the first place. You're not
people that think that, like, they see one person who's successful and they look at the person go through the finish line and they say, oh, okay, I'm going to start running this race. But they don't realize that this person trained for it for like 20 years. Like, yeah, if you remove all context, this makes sense. But if you think about it, it stops making sense.
even thinking about what the impact
And think about how many, that's a good example, right, is streamers. Think about how many streamers there are. Oh, well, all you do is just sit there and play video games. Well, I can do that. I'm going to stream and be a millionaire. And then you do it and nobody watches the show.
Those who oppose me shall be left to drown.
I think that's that's another good example in a way it worked before. Yeah, exactly. That's just how it isn't. It doesn't work. It's easy, right? Yeah, it's easy. People just want to sit there and they don't understand a lot of the context about it. It's the same as crypto. Or like investing in general. They don't understand anything about how to make money. They just think that if they put $300 in a Hawk Tuah coin, they'll be a fucking millionaire.
A price increase would be on other games and other studios outside of one of the biggest video game franchises of all time. $70 is the new current market rate for AAA releases? No, I think it's the going market rate for trash. The best releases on PC over the past 2 years have been $60. I mean, take a minute to think about it. If game prices were $100 today, what games
It's actually a really good point. Like Elden Ring and I think Baldur's Gate 3 both were $60, right? They weren't even 70.
realistically come out at $100? Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Skull and Bones, Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Diablo 4, Call of Duty, The Sims, sports games, trash, generic slop, and in some cases, absolute dumpster fires. And while some of them still would have reached an audience, they wouldn't have reached an audience of the same size because they would have cut off their leg to save a foot in regards to the game's price. I mean, think about what you're saying here. Even Ball mentions how GTA 6 is likely to cannibalize the sales and playtime of other games when they're released. Now imagine these morons raising their prices to $100. Good games sell well and bad games don't. And from my perspective, if the price of games were to increase, it's going to price a lot of players out of a lot of games and the entire market is going to shift. Good games...
Another really big component to this that's not considered enough is the effects this has on second world and third world country markets. And I think that the biggest one is South America. South America are some of the most dedicated and invested communities online for video games in the entire world. And so when you make games like that and you don't have regional pricing for people like that, you lose this massive fan base that you could potentially have. Big numbers, yeah, exactly. Like it's insane.
Will sell well, and bad games
So
won't
it's like
sell
we're
at all.
only thinking
which
about
means
this
a
from, like, a
minor
Western
mistake could
first
have
world country
catastrophic
POV.
consequences for some of these studios, and the
So for
gap
everybody
between
else, it's like
successes
10
is going to
times
become an
worse.
ocean many studios cannot cross. I do not understand why the conversation isn't focused around how much money these companies are spending on games. Companies that cannot properly budget their own projects, set realistic sales projections, or even target an audience's needs properly. Ubisoft spends hundreds of millions of dollars on a busted-ass pirate ship simulator. EA invested hundreds of millions into an educational HR video disguised as Dragon Age.
That's about right.
And we have so many more studios that are torching millions of dollars on bloated games filled with busy work and realistic eyelashes. What are we doing
Exactly.
here?
Nobody gives a fuck. Original remaster. Like, I'm sorry, but like, nobody asked.
Better stop that vehicle.
And also, let's say some people asked.
Denizens of the
Who asked for more? Which group of people had more askers? This or Bloodborne?
I don't have to be center stage.
This industry is in a state of entropy where they just keep pressing forward, they keep spending more money, they're adding nothing to the core experience, and the customer is the one that is expected to keep up with their spending. They want to blame the failures of the industry on...
Luckily, there's a Chinese knockoff version of that game coming out that looks like it's going to be way better. They stole everything from Elden Ring, so I'm going to assume it's going to be pretty fun.
That's 3.
Yeah, you can even build mechs and shit like that in the game. It's going to be awesome. Total fucking knockoff.
not making enough money, only to distract from the fact that it's
Light
their
of
fault
Ultron.
that people
Yeah.
are losing their jobs.
They
Studios
stole
are closing
everything
and
from
sales
Horizon.
are dwindling.
I can't wait to
I actually
play it.
read through Matthew Ball's 223-page presentation, and he unwittingly proved it himself. In 2020, IDC, Google, ARC, and SMP all made projections on what they thought the industry would look like with its growth in the coming years. They viewed the pandemic boom as an accelerant, not an anomaly. Yes, these idiots thought that COVID was the future. ARC Investments forecasted that the industry would grow by 50% in 4 years, from $200 billion to $300 billion. Meaning that investors, blindly trusting speculators,
Jesus, man. I feel bad for those investors.
Goodbye.
They really got hoodwinked.
ran to invest in these companies and publishers, and in turn, those companies, flush with cash, invested heavily into their new future.
Yeah, I
only
bet
for
they
them to
did.
be met with the crushing reality that none of those predictions would come true, outside of Ampere. So if you're going to use them for investment, they're actually probably the better bet. They don't want game prices to increase for inflation. They want game prices to increase to make up for their colossal financial hole that they've dug themselves into.
Yeah.
The pandemic led to a wave of overly optimistic projections. Popular forecasters and analysts predicted that gaming would experience perpetual growth, an assumption that was rooted in a brief surge during lockdowns. These predictions were reckless, overlooking the fundamental truth. Once the pandemic subsided, people had to return to the working world. Inflation would then
It's
hit.
also that, like, during the pandemic, that's whenever you had, like, all that DEI shit and all these other jobs that got added into the workforce that actually didn't contribute to the end product. So whenever you bring in 20 people onto the payroll, you really bring in about 25 people onto the payroll, because you need to have somebody manage those people. You need to have somebody account for those people, literally, with the money. And then you have to have somebody that deals with the people that deal with them. And so, like, there's like a pyramid that happens with every type of addition into a company. And so these things don't exist in a vacuum. So you add in this, like, massive amount of people and you're going to be in a bad spot.
Hard. I think a lot of people forget just how much of an impact stimulus checks had in the US. You had people that were low income and middle class earners that were making more money through unemployment than they ever did while they were employed. This ended up leading to a lot of unrealistic and excessive spending, especially given how much time they had on their hands. How the hell could you believe that the sales and engagement gaming saw in 2020 and 2021 would stay the same. Then I found out
This
just
also happened with streamers and content creators too.
how delusional they
Same
are
thing.
when I came across the slide that was talking about the shortfall of spending and how players were spending less money and how there were less hours that were spent in games and how that led to an unprecedented number of commercial disappointments and flops. Forspoken, Skull and Bones, Concord, Halo Infinite, Redfall, Star Wars Outlaws, Avatar. These games didn't fail because of some esoteric lack in spending. It's because these games suck. Now, after I saw this, it got me thinking. I can
Well, you
spend
got
it.
this one, people thought sucked dick. This one sucked dick. This one sucked so much dick they're having to shut it down. I don't even know what this is. So this is like, you know what I said about building 100 bridges and sucking one dick? Well, these people, they sucked, let's see, I don't know, what's this? 15 plus 9, 24 dicks. Yeah, what happens when you don't build any bridges and you just suck 24 dicks? Not so good, huh?
It's because these games suck. Now, after I saw this, it got me thinking. I'll admit that I was taken aback when I saw just how much,
As a matter of fact, yes.
the industry had receded after 2020. I had expected a decline, sure, but not to that extent. It took me a while to process it, so I started comparing some of the numbers with some of the other charts in the presentation, and then I stumbled upon something eye-opening. For a while now, I've had this ongoing theory in my mind that the so-called silent majority, those unengaged, uneducated masses that the industry often points to, doesn't...
Like, we're gonna get a bunch of these, like, stupid fucking, like, Walmart Americans to pay all their money for this game. Like, I'm sorry, but unless you're making a basketball or a soccer or football game, that's not gonna happen. Maybe a gun game, but that's it.
actually exist in the way they think they do. I've always believed that the controversies and the complaints that we see from gamers are more than just the noise of a toxic vocal minority. They have a real, tangible effect on how players spend their money and engage with games. And as much as these developers...
Well, here's how you know that's true. If they didn't have an effect, you wouldn't have companies paying streamers to create the effect.
and journalists would try to dismiss it, I think our collective opinions hold more
do you
weight
mean?
than they give us credit for. The slide in the presentation that caught my eye was the one that showed that while US GDP and world GDP were on the rise, indicating that global overall spending was up, player spending dropped 13% from 2021 to 2024. That's a pretty significant dip, and it made me think, what other industry exploded alongside gaming during this period? Social media. And guess what? Social media didn't take the same dive that gaming did. So think about it. Players who would have normally not been involved in gaming communities suddenly found themselves more connected than ever. The silent majority.
My understanding is it did a little bit. Stats, overview. So if you look at like 2021 and like you look at the average is like 3.1 million, and then you look at this to 2.4. So a 3.1 to 2.4 drop, that's about 33% drop. You know, just like average, about like 1/3. I actually think it's pretty similar to streaming. That's COVID. Well, that's my point, right? Is that what he's saying is that extrapolating COVID data to be an indefinite trend is retarded. It's a 20% drop? Yeah, well, a 20%, let's say it's a 20% drop. Okay, so I might have done the math wrong. My point is that that's about the same, actually. Didn't you mean YouTube and Instagram? I don't have access to that data as easily as I have access to Twitch. You could be right with Instagram or another platform. All I can look at is Twitch as like one point on a graph.
Those once quiet and unaware of the broader gaming world became a part of it during COVID. They began engaging with games on a deeper level, and their awareness grew. They didn't buy into what was just being fed to them. They started thinking critically and evaluated their purchases, participating in some of these online communities and sharing their thoughts on other platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and Twitch.
There's also a metagame. Oh, wow. Good chart. There's also a metagame of this, too. There's a psychological metagame that's going on, which is that in times of recession,
And in times of problems, people actually spend more money on entertainment to distract themselves. This is a absurd phenomenon.
Someone needs a snowball.
So, like, not only is it stupid in one way, it's observably stupid based off of psychology that's been tested.
I think that Twitch is a really good example of this because while their viewership has dipped a little bit since 2021, they still retained a lot of the audience that they captured during COVID, and they haven't fallen back to their pre-2020 numbers. That shows a community that stuck around, that was once passive consumers, is now much more active and informed.
I think that's what's happened with all of these. They have grown, but they haven't continued to grow. And the problem is that prospective investment is banking on continuous returns and continuous growth, which is what's concerning them. It's not that they haven't retained some of the growth, it's that they haven't continued the growth. And that's what's hurting the value of these companies. It's because it's all about basically hoping that you can take your $20 and turn it into $30.
Of customers who have returned to the workforce,
It's about
who
whether
have
the
less
graph
money
is
to
going
spend
up
due
or
to
down.
inflation, who likely picked up on a couple of YouTube channels or Twitch streamers that are talking about different issues that are going on in the industry, and they're still watching, they're still engaging with that content. This isn't just a trend, it's a fundamental change in how we as consumers, as customers, as players engage with this industry. We're not just the ones buying games anymore. We are shaping the conversations around them. We are shaping what their sales look like at the end of the day. And I think the developers
hate that. They hate the fact that gamers actually have a voice in terms of what they buy and what they want in games. And I think that developers resent that a lot because that's why they turn off comments and disable replies and block people, and they try to shut people down and say the wrong things.
journalists are starting to realize this, even if they're reluctant to admit it. The players really are the ones with all the power.
Yeah,
when you look
they
at the
are.
growth of social media and you see how many people are connected to it, it's at a point where it's oversaturation. We're still seeing the same levels of engagement during the lockdown days. They're still the same. A lot of the channels probably have seen even more growth since then. I would guarantee if I went out and I started polling some of the people that blew up or got big or anything like that during COVID, they probably still retained a lot of their audience, except for some of those Minecraft.
Yeah, a lot of people on Twitch totally fell the fuck off. I'm gonna be honest. Like, all of those people that were like the Among Us streamers, literally basically every single one of them is totally irrelevant and nobody cares about them anymore. And there's like maybe 2 exceptions, and that's the same with Minecrafters. Total fucking, like, people just, you know, they went from middle school to high school, and I guess these people got lost in translation.
Guys,
I'm not giving any names. No names.
But I think what the industry doesn't realize, or maybe they just don't want to realize it, that's probably really what it is that players are still engaged.
Don't put XQC on this. That's my boy. XQC took a golden parachute worth $100 million, sailed off into the sunset, and still gets over 30,000 viewers every day.
Reached a checkpoint. Keep up the
Don't talk
momentum.
shit about my boy. Absolutely not. I'm thinking about the people that are trying to, you know, hustling around that 2,000 range.
Someone needs a snowball in the face.
Engaged in all these discussions, all the views are still coming in on videos, all the tweets and all the Reddit stuff is still getting updates and all that good stuff. People are talking about the industry, but they're not buying the games and they're not playing the games. So what does that mean? That means that they're out there involved in this community and they're avoiding games. You cannot tell me that all the controversy that was surrounding Dragon Age the Veilguard didn't affect its sales. People waited for reviews, they felt the general vibe of the game, and they avoided the game. And as such, the game failed. In most cases, a game with that name, a game that has that much cultural weight, Dragon Age, should have sold regardless. It still should have did really well, but it didn't. And why is it?
Inquisition sold
Because
20
people
million
are
copies.
paying attention to videos, they're watching videos, they're keeping up on previews and stuff like that. They're going off of the vibe before they actually go to buy. And as such, they're avoiding stuff that they don't think is worth their money. You know, one thing that the analysts and the journalists aren't talking about is why GTA could sell for $100.
Because
The
it's
reason
good.
why is it's because it's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, it's
It
a
has
good
been
game.
cultural
Yeah.
phenomenon. It's a
Wow.
massive game. And
What a surprise.
The thing is that there's a lot of players that are out there that have overhyped the game in a lot of cases, but it's one of the most anticipated releases in forever, it feels like. And some people are confident the game is going to deliver, but I think a lot of people are going to buy it even if it doesn't because they're just going to do it. Simple as that. And there's a level of confidence there, consumer confidence,
Yeah.
that I don't think exists anywhere else in the industry right now. Maybe there's a couple of studios that are out there.
From Software, Larian, Capcom, in my opinion, and like I'm like Warhorse now with Kingdom Come, Saber Interactive. They made Space Marine 2, Grinding Gear Games, Creative Business Unit 3. Fucking CD Projekt Red. I'm gonna be honest, they're still on my good list. Like any of these people, Atlas, yep, another great example. If these people make a game, I am proactively in, and they have to work to get me out.
Other people are like, for
Because
sure,
they've
I'll buy
earned
one of
that.
their games. FromSoft is like that for a lot of people. Larian's now become one of those studios as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that people will probably pick up on Game Science or Saber or whatever it might be. But outside of that, the vast majority of games, most people are relatively leery about. I mean, there's not a lot of studios. Anytime any game comes out, I'm pretty nervous because I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work day one. I don't know if it's going to be worth my money. I don't know if they're going to deliver on all the promises, even with the gameplay trailers and stuff like that. Because we've had games in the past that have showed us gameplay trailers and the game didn't play anything like it.
Yeah,
Sure, you're going to have some people that are out there that are going to be habit buyers.
those are my
and
favorite videos.
They will just go and pick up Grand Theft Auto, and I'm sure probably the same thing will happen for like sports games and stuff like that too. But I'm just going to be honest with you. There's just a lot of people that are out there that can't afford $100 video games. And this isn't a shot at people being like, oh, look at this broke boy or anything like that. Dude, I get it.
There are a lot of people who can afford things, but they just simply, like, there are people that make $100,000 a year, but they have a wife that's maybe a stay-at-home mom, and they have 2 or 3 kids, and they have to budget their money. That's just the way it is. And also, just because people are, like, I have friends of mine, a lot of my friends are like this. They make a lot of money, but they're still prudent with their money. I have some of my friends that, these are not even streamer friends. They do not have streamer money. They go out every weekend and spend $1,000. And they're not making that. I don't know where they get the fucking money. But I mean, for a lot of people that have a lot of money, many of them have a lot of money because they're prudent with their money.
I don't like spending that kind of money on something. I could write it off on my taxes and I'll still feel dirty
USA?
doing it. And to be honest with you, with the rise in popularity for PC gaming, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a return to pirating. Just like in the early 2000s when
Yeah.
it was CDs. They were overpriced, they were bulky, they were hard to store,
$19
they were easily
CDs.
damaged. 20, 30 bucks for a CD?
It's ridiculous.
Bro, it was too much money. Everybody flooded to LimeWire and Napster.
And we
and
would
stuff.
buy like a few of them, right? Like you'd buy like, you know, the new fucking Coheed and Cambria, or a new fucking, back then, like AFI, My Chemical Romance, Tool, right? Like Dragon Force. But there are just like so many other albums that were just not worth $20. Linkin Park, yeah, exactly. You buy Meteora for sure.
Stuff like that. And
System
I
of a
guarantee you'll
Down,
probably see the
yeah.
same thing here because a lot of it is based off of convenience. While general customers, I don't really think
bought
are really
this one.
interested in pirating games, just general consumers,
this one,
they
2005.
will be if the industry prices them out of it.
At a
Because they
Walmart.
were at one point in time with music. Back in the day, nobody had any problem downloading movies, TV shows, and music. And still in a lot of cases, people do. The only reason why they do it today is because it's convenient and relatively cheap in their eyes because they're spending it on subscription programs or whatever it is. This is going to be devastating to the industry if they make this choice because, like I said before, listing off some of the games, think about the games that they would actually sell for $100. The vast majority of games that release in a year aren't worth that kind of money.
No, they're not.
And you know for a fact, anytime there's some type of just generic...
They're not worth that entry fee. And that's another really big component, is that for some people that get into a video game, they will pay $100 in a video game through microtransactions and other types of fees. But in order, it's like a cover charge, right? Like there would be a lot of bars that, like, I remember, this is like going back 10 years. And actually, oh my God, more than 10 years now. That I would go downtown and I would go to bars and clubs with friends of mine, right? I know you might not be able to believe this, but this was in another 3,000 years ago, right? And so on 6th Street, downtown Austin, we would just never go in places that had a cover charge. We just never would. And so, like, if you have a high enough cover charge,
there are going to be some people that are just not going to go in. And the higher the cover charge, the higher the probability is that you have people that just don't even go in. Yeah, Cody knows. Yeah, exactly. He's in chat. Yeah, facts. Exactly. No, for sure, right? And you know, some of those fucking places, it's not worth spending $15 to spend $20 on a shot. You might as well just go somewhere else and spend $20 on a shot anyway.
Blanket price increase.
What's the cover charge? to get inside the
They're all going to go
establishment.
for it. And they're all going to fail. Outside of a handful, maybe 1, 2, 3 games a year, maybe. And the funny thing is that even those games are going to suffer because most people aren't going to be able to justify $300 on 3 games.
Crazy.
That's crazy. You out of your mind? That's half a console. What are you thinking?
Well, it is now with the Concord
Even
tax.
a price increase up to $80, I think is going to be too much. It's just, I don't care what people say about, you know, how realistically money feels today because of inflation or anything like that. $80 to $100 is a lot of money. And for most people, they're just going to pass on it. There's other games that are out there that are far cheaper, that are much more worth their money, and they're going to support them instead. Yeah. So if these AAA companies want to go ahead and do it, these big, you know, the biggest publishers and studios that we have that are out there, go for it. I love to make videos about it.
Yeah,
Exactly. I want to make for BioWare. That's gonna be. That one's a long time coming. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it to your friends, share it on social media and things like that. Boost my engagement. Make me famous.
I'll link you guys the video.
See you guys later.
This is a great
Stay
video.
cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
I love this video. Great, amazing fucking video. Fucking incredible. Absolute cinema. There it is. Give them a like. Give it a sub. We've watched a lot of Legendary Drops videos over the years, and I think they've all been great. And so this guy's always relevant. Yes, absolutely. And so I see this, and I think that a lot of these people, like, it's true that inflation has gone up. It is. It's true. But it doesn't matter. Like, you're thinking about the economics of it. You're not thinking about the psychology. Business, in my opinion, is more about psychology than economics. Economics follows the psychology. The psychology does not follow the economics. That's the difference. People don't understand that. It's consumer behavior. Exactly. It's consumer fucking behavior. We pay $100 for games. I would in some cases. Nobody asked them to hire Hollywood actors. We just want fun games. I think that if Kojima makes Death Stranding 2 with a bunch of Hollywood actors and it's really good, I'll fucking buy it. I don't care. But here's the problem. Most of these other people, you're not Kojima. You're not even close. Get them out. Just just add in your generic, hot anime girl, put it in there, you're gonna be better off. That's the way I see it. People love them. Yeah, people, and also, like, those actors are really, like, same as with Norman Reedus, right? Everybody loves him. So, like, if you bring in an actor, like Jim Carrey is another one. Like, you hear Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey are gonna be in the Sonic movie? I'm sorry, but, like, every 35-year-old dad is, like, bat-chesting. I'm gonna take my kid to see this. It's gonna be so good. Yeah, exactly. And the kid's excited, too. Like, that's how to fucking print money. And so there you go.
So close! This is your big chance! It's party time!
Armed and dangerous!
Now I see them. The current score is 3-2-0. Time to switch things up, including which side you're on.
You act.
insignificant.
The right heroes could make all the difference. Round 2, go!
Between a symbiote and its host is sacred. Not dare to break it.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
Thanks for trusting us.
You'll do just fine, kid. I've been there too.
Yeah, just let a crazy scientist experiment.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have to stop them from securing the mission area. I hope this isn't bad.
We feel much better.
Oh, portal. Get ready. Please, we're hurt. A little help, please. There's too many bad guys.
I am strengthened for battle. Leave me done.
You thought we were done.
You need to stop that vehicle in its tracks. Hold still, I'm trying to help. Better stop that vehicle! Us against the world! Shields up! We are undefeatable!
By the eye of Agamotto!
Jury!
I am wounded. More help!
I unleash the Vishanti's
My
power!
enemy!
Get in here, y'all.
They've made it halfway! Stop them!
That's a weapon of war, Castle.
Better stop that vehicle! There's still a chance to stop them!
Coming through!
He stopped them in their tracks! I've got you covered.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Angry! world!
Gone from sight. Their power. Dish it out. I can take it. Judge, jury, executioner! By the eye of Agamotto. Didn't like your tea. All right, that feels better. You never
Thanks!
At least I didn't wake up in the crazy house again. The moon haunts you! I am vengeance!
Only 60 seconds left.
The power.
We are undefeatable!
Do your work. Red threes are gone. Thanks. Together! To victory!
Against the world!
Surrender your strength.
Down to 30 seconds.
Don't mess with the amazing spike!
Nice work, Nemo.
That's a weapon of war. Human weapons are so fragile.
Or a dagger. The final 10 seconds.
Surrender your strength.
You'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner.
The moon haunts you!
You got them all! All clear! Final score, 3, 2, 1. Another epic victory! Big win!
What happened to our squirrels? The moon haunts you!
You'll need a top-notch team to win this one.
I tear through the cloudless night, just like the moon.
pod ready. Opening escape capsule.
The living avatar of vengeance takes a lot out of a guy.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Time to drain.
Welcome to the Dark Force dimension.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
The darkness.
I'm sure there are baby wizards everywhere these days. If I had the patience, I would open soon.
Get ready. Here come the bad guys.
Another foe vanquished!
Come on, Khonshu. Let me rest.
All systems smash.
You need their power.
From the one below all power grows.
You owe me one. Ew! What are those co-op times?
Keep your ugly friends in the scene. Needed that, thanks. There, ahead. I found them. Time to drain. Khonshu smiled on us.
Keep your balance, you two, and stay in the
I'll get that vehicle to its
Let's
destination.
get beneath the surface and finish Null. You need the power. The wounds are gone. Thanks. The moon haunts you!
You need hope.
You need their power.
Arachnophobia time. Pulse charge. Fire. With the pulse cannon. Enemy
Behold the god of thunder!
Halfway there. Keep going. Us against the world.
Alright, that feels better.
Get underground, no more chicken black.
you up.
I've come back from far worse than that.
Co-op time.
Shrouded by moonlight.
Get ready. Here come the bad guys.
Needed that, thanks.
Judge, jury, executioner!
Time to drain.
You're welcome.
Found some sort of spider nest. Gross.
Pulse charge. Fire. Overcome. Pulse cannons end arguments. Too sweet.
Almost there. Don't turn back now.
You need their power.
This is compromised.
You know what to do? The vehicle reached a checkpoint. Keep up the momentum.
Love battlefield medicine. Beholds the god of thunder! The moon haunts you! Back where I started.
That's it! Don't let anything stand in your way. It's spider time!
Time to drain.
Pulse charge.
Needed that, thanks. Time to drain.
Double KO!
Revenge is sort of my specialty.
So close! This is your big chance!
By the hoary hosts of hope.
The current score is 3-2-0. Time to switch things up, including which side you're on.
I tear through the cloudless night, just like the moon.
The right heroes could make all the difference. Round 2, go!
My turn now!
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
Today, on the Matt Walsh Show, Donald Trump is the first Western leader to take a stand against the persecution of white farmers in South Africa. This is a story that should be getting a lot more attention. Also, Nike and the NFL give a girl power sermon during the Super Bowl. A 13-year-old in Detroit is arrested for a string of home invasion robberies. Why aren't his parents being held accountable? And a guy at an anti-Trump rally threatens to punch me. Very scary stuff. We'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show.
Battle starts in 5, 4, 3.
You know what's fascinating? When your metabolism is working properly, you feel the benefits in literally every aspect of your life. I've discovered an incredible tool that gives me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. It's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It measures your metabolism through your breath, and the app tells you if you're burning fat or carbs. It then provides personalized guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. Using it couldn't be simpler. I breathe into my Lumen first thing in the morning to understand my metabolism and get a personalized nutrition plan for the day. I can also check before and after workouts and meals to know exactly what's happening in my body in real time. Here's why this matters. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns food into fuel. When it's optimized, you'll experience better energy levels, improved fitness results, and even better sleep. Lumen gives you all the recommendations you need to improve your metabolic health, helping you to make informed decisions about your nutrition and lifestyle. Take the next step to improve your health. Go to lumen.me/Walsh to get 20% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Walsh for 20% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Early in the afternoon of April 16th, 2000, a 77-year-old farmer named John Cross and his 76-year-old wife were returning home from church in the province of Limpopo, South Africa. And when they arrived, they were immediately attacked by two men who had broken into their house. The men shot the elderly woman 3 times, but she didn't die immediately. So to torture her for roughly 25 minutes, the assailants poured boiling water on top of her. And when it came time to murder John Cross, the attackers tied him up, shot him several times, and poured boiling water down his throat for roughly 5 hours. In the end, the killers made off with a few $1,000s worth of household items, and when they were caught, they were not repentant at all. Afterwards, when she was asked about the motive, the Cross's daughter said, quote, "I think it's hatred. It must be race hatred. I think they did it for satisfaction." Now, as horrific as this incident was, it wasn't especially uncommon at the time. Farm invasions were happening at a rate of around 1,000 per year. This barbarism was occurring so frequently that 2 years after the Crosses were executed, South Africa commissioned a 500-page report on farm attacks, and it found that almost 2/3 of farm attacks targeted elderly white people in rural areas, often sadistically. But the conclusion of the report was that somehow racism wasn't a factor in most of these incidents. Even though white people only made up something like 10% of South Africa's population, accounted for 2/3 of the victims of these attacks, the government insisted that anti-white racism was not a major problem in South Africa. This was a narrative that nobody in the West wanted to challenge. Yes, it was obviously a lie. No serious person said otherwise. But in the eyes of Western leaders, it was a necessary lie. And that's because just about a decade earlier, South Africa had supposedly ended racism when they overthrew the apartheid regime. In a referendum in the early 90s, white South Africans voted to effectively authorize a new constitution, one that would allow universal suffrage, end many forms of discrimination against black Africans, and ultimately clear the way for majority rule by non-whites. As Nelson Mandela put it at the time, quote, "The referendum signaled the end of white privilege." Now, it was supposed to trigger a kind of golden age in South Africa, if our leaders were to be believed. After all, white people had just lost much of their political power. A black majority would soon gain that power in a free and democratic fashion, supposedly. And inevitably, that was supposed to lead to racial harmony and a high-functioning society. And certainly the media got behind that narrative. Pull up news coverage of this referendum, and you'll see how the decision was framed at the time. The choice, we were told, was between democracy and racial segregation. And given that choice, most people would opt for democracy, obviously. What we were not told is that, in the end, democracy in South Africa would produce even more racial segregation and racial injustice. And all along, Western elites knew that that would happen. In fact, they intended for it to happen. In various academic papers far away from the public view, left-wing academics admitted to this. Here, for example, is what the critical race theorist Cheryl Harris wrote in the Harvard Law Review all the way back in the summer of 1993, just as South Africa was getting rid of apartheid. Quote, "The South African conception of affirmative action expands the application of affirmative action to a much broader domain than has typically been envisioned in the United States. That is, South Africans consider affirmative action a strategic measure to address directly the distribution of property and power, with particular regard to maldistribution of land and the need for housing. This policy has not yet been clearly defined, but what is implied by this conception of affirmative action is that existing distributions of property will be modified by rectifying unjust loss and inequality. Property rights will then be respected, but they will not be absolute and will be considered against a societal requirement of affirmative action." So in other words, the newly installed African National Congress was not interested in implementing a system based on equal rights for all races. That was the little secret that, we weren't told about. Instead, with the backing of Western academics, they were going to start practicing equity. They were going to be a laboratory for critical race theory shortly before it would take hold in the United States. And of course, that meant redistributing land and housing and money on the basis of race. It meant using the law to punish white people. And they did exactly that. So take a look at this chart. It's from the South African Institute of Race Relations, and it tracks the number of race-based laws in the country. And you'll notice that when apartheid was ended in the early 1990s, there was this massive drop, as you would expect. Black Africans were not considered second-class citizens anymore. They didn't have to carry identification cards around that specified their racial group as required by law from the required by a law from the 1950s. They didn't have to self-segregate in residential areas or in libraries, parks, and restaurants. They weren't prohibited from marrying whites anymore, and so on. So a bunch of race-based laws were taken off the list. But then you can see, if you look at the chart, what happened. Starting around 2000, the number of race-focused laws went back up dramatically. In fact, the number of race-based laws is now higher than it was at any other point in South Africa's history. It's higher than it ever was during apartheid. Only this time around, the laws were intended to exact racial vengeance on whites. And whites lost the protection of the laws that were already on the books. This has continued for decades with very little fanfare, which has led to scenes like this one in a squatters camp for whites in South Africa. Watch.
The organization also provides them with food supplies, but as often happens, the distribution of it is interrupted by some uninvited guests. These men and women, who have come from a neighboring shantytown, are members of a radical political party. Their hats bear the initials EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. It's a movement whose aim is to give back the country's riches to black people. During this stirring speech, other members of the group take advantage of the distraction and steal some of the food. And they're not afraid to show off their loot.
They just came in here and took the poor people's food. You saw. We all saw it. He saw it.
Now, again, nobody in the West stood up while this was going on at any point. There was no international coalition of the willing that liberated South Africa. The sentiment only began to change to some extent in August of 2018 when South Africa's government filed papers to seize several white-owned farms